Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Captains of Industry. I'm Alicia Seckham. Well, he was appointed as Grant Thornton's first black managing partner, and after almost 4 years at the helm of the firm's Durban practice, Deepak Nagar now holds the position of national chairman at Grant Thornton South Africa. He's also our Captain of Industry tonight. Thanks so much, Deepak, for joining us this evening. Well, let's get straight into things. I mean, as I've said, you've just taken over as national chairman in South Africa of this global audit and advisory firm. You've been in the position just over a month. How are you warming up in the seat?
Oh, thank you very much, Alicia. And yeah, warming up nicely, but I think it's challenging. And I think I do thrive on challenges if one looks at my history of the positions that I've occupied. And I look forward to the new challenge that we face every day. Well,
certainly while you aren't new to the firm, you've been at Grant Thornton for 18 years, standing as managing partner, as I said, at the Durban office since 2008. How different is it now to start steering strategy and direction on a national level as opposed to on a regional level?
That's very interesting because when one's focused in one's own market dynamics, it's actually quite easy because you're dealing with partners that are in your office. As soon as you go on a national level, you have cultures across the offices that you have to try and get together into the same direction. So that in itself is a challenge, and one of the key ingredients in our success is naturally our people. You know, it's the biggest asset that's not on our balance sheet, and we as an organization thrive on obviously ensuring that we look forward to our people's challenges and we address their challenges and take them on this journey with us.
So communication is imperative at this stage, and getting communication right. One of the goals you've set is to double revenues by 2015. It's been described as a bold, hairy ambition. I mean, what are some of the challenges you foresee in getting there?
Well, yeah, Grant Thornton International released a report called Ambition 2015 to its member firms, and that's essentially what you mentioned, doubling of revenue by 2015. And what's interesting is that, you know, one could look at the challenges that we face in the environment today and ask ourselves, oh, where are we going to get this growth from? How are we going to achieve it? Well, I generally like to look at the horizon and to say, if there's a challenge, it must present an opportunity. And one of those opportunities, with the changing of the regulatory landscape, we'll find is in the consolidation of the firms, especially in the mid-sector. So you'll find a lot of consolidation of firms happening, and we're looking at that as an opportunity for growth of the firm itself.
Well, we'll be getting into some of that strategy in just a bit. I mean, as a company, though, you've been quoted as saying that you seriously punch above your weight. What's your view on taking that kind of approach to life in general?
Well, you know, one's naturally, from an ambition perspective, always got to set a target. And we found ourselves asking, saying, okay, if we really want to punch above our weight and continue to do so, one has to achieve a certain level of size. And that size effectively is where the doubling essentially came from. Yeah. Is to say, at that size is where we need to punch above our weight and contribute to the economy itself.
I ask because, you know, you can emerge on top at the end of a battle like that, or you can seriously injure yourself. So, you know, how do you know as a leader when to stay the course and when it's time to actually jump ship? You know, that hanging on is futile. Being a leader is also about knowing when to cut your losses.
Well, generally, you know, when you put in a position of leadership, you're put in by the people that are backing you behind it. You know, and I always get a sense of feel from my executive committee and the masses of people that we have behind us to say, okay, we are pushing in the right direction. We believe in our strategy, we believe in the vision, and we're going in the right direction.
Are you prone to admitting or accepting defeat?
Well, absolutely. You know, one must always realize when the chips are down and one's got a hand in the towel, or one's got to say, look, the strategy is not working. We've got to change it.
Yeah. For now, though, the strategy is working and it's not part of the plan to fail. So what is to grow the business? I mean, a third organically, a third through your new services line, and then a third via M&A. It's a difficult operating environment, as you highlighted earlier, that you're having to achieve this in. So take us through, you know, identifying what you touched on earlier, opportunity in uncertain times.
One of the biggest opportunities, Alicia, is actually looking at our client base and our networking ability, and ask ourselves, we're delivering good service to our existing client base. Are there opportunities in that existing client base for work to flow into the organization? Yeah. And secondly, asking ourselves, in addressing our clients' needs, is there something lacking in what we're addressing to them in the services that we offer? Is there additional services that one needs to offer? And from that gives rise to the birth of additional service lines. You know, and from an acquisition perspective, we're looking at mergers currently. We're in discussions with a number of firms, and obviously, naturally, I can't give you too much of detail. But again, looking immediately as to say, have we got the right culture? is this the right fit for the firm going forward in terms of achieving our strategy of doubling revenue?
Very interesting is that one of the opportunities that has been identified within this very challenging environment has been a focus on recovery, reorganization business, and that's developing opportunities I've been reading for businesses in troubled times. Run us through that strategy, because now presents then a very lucrative time for a company like Grant Thornton that's going down this route specifically.
Well, absolutely. We recently appointed a head for that service line itself, and he comes with a wealth of experience, including at a big insurance house. He's got a wealth of experience in that area, and we're looking forward to using his knowledge and tapping into the markets that he knows in terms of gaining on that market share. But if you look at the New Companies Act, I think that's where the opportunity was presented on this service line and said, look, there's an opportunity for a service line to grow. In the current economic environment, there definitely will be a need to address this service line not from a client perspective, actually from a non-client perspective.
Yeah.
We're seeing the opportunities more with our relationship with private equity firms, with banks, with the attorney firms, etc. as well, where we can piggyback on those relationships to grow that service line.
This is certainly a very new area for South Africa specifically. Adaptability is the key to survival. Personally, just how adaptable a person are you?
Well, I've always been told that I'm a fairly adaptable person, but once I have a view, I'm steadfast in it, and I do hold firm at times. So what drives me is generally the vision. If we have a vision that we've bought into, I'm generally steadfast in what we're trying to achieve, and it would take a significant movement to move me off that track.
Yeah. Well, looking at your competitive advantage, what gives Grant Thornton the edge in your books? I mean, you alluded to a little earlier your skill set, specifically the human system of the business. Would you say that that's one of the key ingredients?
Absolutely. It's the essential key ingredient, and it goes back to our hiring system as to the type of people that we hire and we mold into our organization. People would say we're an audit firm. I like to say we actually developed intellect and business acumen. We develop business people that can go out there in the world of business and survive. So from that perspective, our people are key.
So in that molding and development, let's go through your philosophy on empowerment specifically. What's your interpretation of empowerment?
Well, I see empowerment beyond just the color of one's skin. I look at empowerment from a race perspective, but also from a gender perspective, but also from an opportunity perspective. Are we empowering the right people in the right service lines to do the right things at the right time?
How do you go through and make sure that you get people to reach their full potential? And as a leader, what role do you see yourself playing in that context?
We have various at the office itself, and from a national perspective, we have various service lines leaders, and they generally have regular meetings itself. And through those meetings, one tends to find opportunities with regard to where the leaders are standing out and speaking on issues. We generally find those people and say, look, we can see they're talented, and now we've got to mold them into a national business leader. And the thinking is very different. It's not necessarily the most technically minded people. And I think most times people are saying, he's the best person technically, so he's the right person for the job. Yeah. And it's not necessarily the case.
Not necessarily. It's all about, identifying that human capital and then making it work for you in the best way possible. It's about leveraging off the hardships, as you highlighted. It's just as much about staying innovative as well. Talent and innovation, scarce commodities. That's a statement I've come across. True or false?
True, absolutely true. And in the current environment, even more true in terms of trying to retain the talent that you nurture for the years itself as well. Yeah. What we try and do at the organization is to make sure that our people are exposed to challenges all the time, and they have something different. Something different presents a new challenge, presents a new opportunity, and people are saying, I'm not bored by what I do. I get new challenges and I'm presented with the opportunities.
Talking about new opportunities, a new concept that Grant Thornton has come through with is the new sustainability unit, and that's to help with long-term sustainability of the economy, leveraging off things like the green economy. Talk us through that and the strategy the company is employing in actually getting things in that regard working for it and in its favor.
Well, if one looks at our regulatory environment, we know there's a hindrance with regard to auditors performing a certain number of functions, services to a specific client. So as we saw an opportunity with regard to the large listed sector market to say we're a credible alternative to the other firms in there, there's an opportunity with regard to this service line, and hence we appointed a quite senior person with a vast amount of knowledge in that service line itself to look to grow that opportunity.
Yeah, as we said, it's challenging times, budgets are tight, it's all about the bottom line. How do you manage where you invest and when?
Well, I suppose one's always going to look at where the opportunity is, but how do you add value to a client? You know, if you look at our new brand promise called growth, you know, we've got a new tagline called an instinct for growth. And that's all about the growth of the client itself. Not just internally, externally focused to the market and to our clients, to ask ourselves, how do we grow our clients? You know, and how do we add value? So it's not about saying, let us do the service for you and here's a fee note for it.
Yeah.
It's to ask ourselves, how do we add value and try and find a different solution for the client?
Absolutely. Taking a look at leadership, how would you describe your leadership style?
Well, I'd like to think it's a level of inclusiveness, but also a level of asking yourself as a leader, one's got to put your foot down to say, I'm in charge and we've got to take control of the situation. But most importantly, as a leader, is to ensure that you have respect for the people that appointed you, behind you, and also take responsibility for the position that you're entrusted with.
Interestingly, you say that leadership is a quality that you've had to learn, though. I mean, how is it a behavior that you actually practice so that it does become habit?
Well, you know, when I started off sort of young in my career, I was very introverted. Then you realize as you get into the challenging world that when you don't start speaking your mind and speaking what you believe in, you know, you get left behind. And seriously, that started motivating me. And I realized the more I started speaking on platforms and through the organization, the more my voice was heard and the more I got thrown into the deep end in terms of challenges, etc. And the more I thrived on the challenges, naturally, the more I progressed through it.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be part of your DNA, and you know, it brings us back to a conversation we've had time and time again about you know, nature versus nurture and what actually grows and grooms a leader.
Absolutely. I certainly don't believe that it doesn't have to be part of your DNA.
Okay, well, that doesn't necessarily make you a successful leader. You know, it's one thing wanting to get there. What in your books does it take to be a successful leader, if you had to name you know, a key ingredient?
Well, a key ingredient for me is to say, you know, have we grown our business to the extent that we continue to employ people that support families behind them? We continue to contribute to the economy itself. And one may ask, you know, as an audit firm, how do you contribute to the economy? Well, if we look at the shortage of skills that we have in the country from the financial perspective, you know, the more people we can get through our system in terms of qualifying as accountants and contribute to the economy of these people, again, that's another measure of our success. And also key talent. How are we retaining our key talent?
Yeah.
If we are, that's a measure of success as well.